In a small-town diner where the smell of fried eggs and coffee usually meant comfort, a shocking act shattered the calm. An 81-year-old war veteran sat quietly at the counter, his faded cap stitched with his unit's emblem, a silent badge of honor. But in walked a man who carried more hate than respect, his leather biker jacket marked not just by patches, but by arrogance. What happened next wasn't just a slap across the face of one elderly man. It was a blow against dignity, service, and humanity itself. Yet within 22 minutes, something no one expected changed everything. The diner had long been a cornerstone of the community. Generations passed through its doors, truckers, school teachers, factory workers, and veterans alike. On that late afternoon, the booths were filled with the usual hum of conversation, plates clattering, and the faint melody of an old jukebox. At the counter sat Henry Cole, 81 years old, with silver hair tucked beneath his cap. He wasn't just any man. Henry was a veteran who had served his country in wars that many only read about in history books. Despite his frail frame and weathered hands, he carried himself with quiet pride. His routine was simple: coffee, a slice of pie, and a smile for anyone who passed by. But beneath this ordinary day lurked something sinister. The door swung open with a force that rattled the glass, and in walked a biker, towering, broad-shouldered, with an aura that turned heads. His boots thudded on the tiled floor as he made his way to the counter. His glare scanned the room like he owned it. Some patrons lowered their eyes, others shifted uncomfortably, sensing trouble. Yet Henry remained calm, unaware, or perhaps unfazed, that the man's gaze had locked onto him. Why Henry? Why here? The answer was steeped not in logic, but in prejudice. The biker's mind was poisoned with the idea that certain people didn't belong, no matter their sacrifices. As whispers died and silence spread, everyone could feel it. The collision of hate and dignity was about to erupt. The biker's presence grew heavier with each step closer to Henry. His jacket bore patches of insignias, some rebellious, others notorious. His eyes, cold and sharp, fixed on the elderly man sipping quietly from his chipped diner mug. Henry's cap displayed 3 stitched words: World War Veteran. It was more than fabric. It was a testament to decades of sacrifice. Yet to the biker, it seemed like a challenge. He sneered, muttered something under his breath, and before anyone could react, his hand lashed out across Henry's face. The sound, a sharp crack, echoed through the diner, silencing forks, spoons, and chatter. Henry didn't fight back. His head turned from the blow, his glasses slipping down his nose, but his dignity remained intact. He adjusted them calmly, his hand trembling only slightly, his expression unreadable. The room held its breath. The biker smirked, feeding on the discomfort of the witnesses. Fear bound the room. No one moved. Some wanted to intervene, but intimidation anchored them to their seats. The injustice was raw, blatant, and unprovoked. What made it worse was the reason behind the attack. Rumors had long swirled that this biker belonged to a group with a history of targeting minorities, veterans of color, and anyone who represented unity in diversity. To him, Henry's mere existence, his service, his resilience, was an affront. As the biker strutted back, chest puffed with pride in his cruelty, the diners remained frozen. But one woman quietly slipped out the back door. She knew Henry had a son. And his son wasn't just anybody. He was a commander stationed nearby, leading a unit of disciplined, diverse soldiers. The clock ticked. Henry wiped his cheek, blood mixing with wrinkles of age. Yet his silence screamed louder than any words could. Minutes passed. Tension strangled the room. And then, tires screeched outside. The biker leaned casually against the counter, proud of his dominance, until the sound of synchronized boots striking pavement shattered his arrogance. Heads turned toward the diner's glass front. Marching in formation were uniformed soldiers, their presence commanding, their steps in unison, a display of strength, discipline, and respect. At the front was Henry's son, his face carved with determination. The biker's smirk faltered. His bravado shrank under the weight of authority and solidarity. These weren't random men. This was a unit forged through training, loyalty, and brotherhood. regardless of race, faith, or origin. As they entered, the diner felt transformed. Fear dissipated, replaced with awe. Customers straightened, breaths caught. Henry's son didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence spoke volumes. Respect demanded respect. The biker, once towering and untouchable, seemed small, cornered, and stripped of his power. The soldiers didn't touch him, but their very stance made it clear. His hate had no place here. The slap he delivered wasn't just against Henry, but against everything these soldiers stood for. The biker tried to mutter excuses, but his words drowned in the silence of shame. His confidence, once inflated by fear, deflated in the face of true courage, and there stood Henry, rising slowly from his stool. His cheek still bore the sting, but his posture was proud, unbroken. Surrounded by his son and the men who embodied the future, he looked less like a victim and more like a symbol. The diner erupted, not in violence, but in applause. The biker was escorted out, not by force, but by the sheer weight of his own humiliation. His presence dissolved into insignificance. The soldiers remained only briefly, long enough to reassure the shaken patrons that hate would not triumph in their town. Henry sat once more, his son beside him, their bond unspoken but undeniable. What had happened wasn't just a confrontation between two men, it was a mirror held up to society. Hate had walked into that diner with arrogance, but it left in silence. Respect walked out taller, stronger, unshaken. The story of that afternoon spread quickly, not just through the town, but beyond. People shared it as a testament to the quiet power of dignity and the louder power of unity. Henry never asked for recognition. He didn't need it. His life had already been proof of resilience. But the lesson that lingered was clear. Racism and hate may arrive with noise and intimidation, but they can be disarmed by courage, unity, and unwavering respect. Every person in that diner walked out changed. Some had been paralyzed by fear, but they learned that silence can fuel injustice. Others were inspired by the soldiers' unity, a reminder that true strength isn't in dividing people, it's in standing together. And as for Henry, he carried on with his simple routines. Coffee, pie, a smile. His cheek bore the memory of that slap. But his heart bore something stronger, the knowledge that dignity will always outlast hate. So, when hate lashes out, whether in a diner, a street, or anywhere it dares to show itself, what role will we play? Will we turn away, or will we stand tall, united, and unafraid? Because sometimes all it takes is one act of courage to silence a lifetime of hate.